I'd like to welcome everybody who's come to hear about the user stories for IT to support cell and gene therapies from BioPhorum. And this is the output of a group who's been working on this material for some time. And we've been asking ourselves several questions. Who does what in the supply of different cell and gene therapies? That's the actors and personas. How does it vary by therapy type? And that's become some process maps. And then how can the systems support people in the supply of cell and gene therapies? And that's become the user stories. So just briefly, an introduction. Not all of you are part of BioPhorum. This is a public webinar and you're very welcome here. BioPhorum is an environment for us to collaborate as a global biopharmaceutical industry. We bring leaders together, we mobilize communities like IT for Cell and Gene Therapies, which is the group who's produced this material and you'll be hearing from today. And we are quite a large organization. There are 75 work streams, and we are just one of those work streams working together on this particular topic. In our group, we have the following companies, such as a mixture of biomanufacturers and CDMOs and some vendors into this space. And there's the link that Nettie has put into the chat, which is where you can find all the resources that I'm just going to briefly outline to you now. And you can download the particular one. That's the one that you're looking for. Is called User Stories in the name. And you can download that from that page that's on the chat link. But as we've been thinking about this subject, we started the publication in September 2020, which was really saying, in what ways is the supply of a cell or gene therapy different to conventional biologics? And some of the things we picked out, you can see listed here: the complexity of execution, the turnaround time and scheduling, traceability, privacy, just picking a couple. But we want to focus in on a few of those today as we go along and expand on them a lot more than we did in that original vision paper, which is one of the most popular papers that's been downloaded by BioPhorum, it appears. We also, in December last year, we published It Can Be Simple, which is all about using analogies to explore the challenges with people who are deep specialists in one area, but not deep specialists in another. We'll show you at least one of those today as we go through. And so most recently, this last month, we have published 2 new resources, one about actors and process maps and one about personas and user stories. Which are a toolkit to help you, and that's what we're presenting today. And if you hadn't realized, those are not just PDFs, but they include Excel sheets and PowerPoint diagrams to allow you to adapt them for your own needs. We want this to be useful. And so today we have 5 industry experts who are presenting to you, and Doan's going to start with why are we doing this. Sean can't join us today, but he is going to, he has provided a pre-record of his segment, which is explaining who is involved in the supply of CGTs. Fred is going to show us some process maps that explain the variation by therapy type. Then Christian will get onto the user stories, which explain what they need the systems to do. And Kim will finish off by describing how to use the toolkit that we've created. As we go along, you're welcome at any point to use the buttons in Teams, which you can find under these symbols, to appreciate what's going on with little claps if you want, or to raise your hand if you want to speak at some point. I'll keep a note of those and bring you in at a certain point. Even better if you could put something in the chat just to indicate either something that you thought was a really good point that you wanted to highlight, or something you wanted to make a comment about, or a question that you might have. It might be that we can fit those in between segments, either that or we'll try and fit them in at the end, but that's the mechanism for interacting. So without too much more ado, over to Doan to tell us why did we do this piece of work.
Thanks, David. So I'm Doan. I'm an industry consultant with Rockwell Automation, and I've been working with a number of customers on cell and gene therapies. And I think everyone on this call is pretty aware that cell and gene therapy is a really rapidly growing field. As stated by the FDA Commissioner in 2019, by 2025, they predict that the FDA will be approving 10 to 20 cell and gene therapy products a year based on that current pipeline and the clinical success rates of those products. And I think most of us realize that CGTs are very different. There's personalization involved, shorter turnaround times, and there's a heavy reliance on partner ecosystems, and not just a single organization. And to kind of highlight that point, there's another quote from Deloitte Insights stating nearly all key decisions require simultaneous input from quality assurance, quality control, regulatory, process development, manufacturing, clinical, commercial, and supply chain functions. New functional roles are being defined for new manufacturing modalities. So part of our work has really been to understand what is different about them as it affects the IT systems. And generally, digital maturity has been low. We have lots of manual processes and point solutions in the CGT industry, right? As a very immature industry right now, there's lots of those manual processes and point solutions that can be automated and digitalized. So the whole point of our work stream is to really consider how can we increase digital maturity for cell and gene therapy manufacturing. So what's the purpose of the cell and gene therapy user stories toolkits? Why are we publishing all this so that everyone in the industry can freely use it? Well, firstly, we have actors and personas. And as previously mentioned, the CGT industry currently heavily relies on a partner ecosystem. That means there's many touch points across the end-to-end value chain. And it raises questions such as who's involved in the CGT supply chain? What do they do? Who's in this new landscape? And which organizations in the ecosystem is taking each role? Secondly, we have process blocks. And if we can define the roles of the participants in a CGT value chain, then there's going to be less that falls through the cracks, and we'll get a more complete solution earlier. If we understand how the process varies by therapy type, it helps avoid weak assumptions. The process block diagrams quickly highlight important things for the design, such as personalizations for each system and each customer, time criticality, and the need for coordination across organizations. And I think if the industry is going to succeed, we have to identify where digital integration is needed between organizations. Thirdly, user stories. Why user stories? User stories focus on what people need the systems to do, and allows us to check our designs and our perspectives. User stories help us understand the reasons why features is needed. We don't want solutions that tick some boxes, and we want accurate solutions that genuinely improve the supply process. So if we're able to align the language requirements and solution components, it'll minimize bespoke work. It'll lead to common solutions, standardization in the end, all of which makes things better, faster, and cheaper. The workstream members working on the CGT user story kit have realized many benefits by learning and collaborating collectively across the experience of all the different practitioners, vendors, and users, and those who have already created successful IT solutions to help bring the CGTs to market. We see IT needs from perspectives of a wide range of participants in the cell and gene therapy industry. And we have awesome discussions on these new entirely new roles that should fit in the organization structure. But more importantly, how will the audience here benefit from the user story toolkits? We hope that it accelerates thinking by prompting discussions on key topics and expectations, right? We hope that it makes your own analysis faster and more thorough, with less risk of things being missed. We hope that it's a jumping off point for strategizing and planning, and provides a platform for a common language for working together. And as a whole, we hope that the industry benefits from it by digital maturity, by increasing the digital maturity for the cell gene therapy supply chain industry. So at this point, David, I'll hand it to you to show the video of Sean describing what it means to be an actor and persona in the user's toolkit.
Fantastic.
Hi everyone, I'm Sean Buckley. If David's playing this, then it means I couldn't attend today, and I apologize for that. Hopefully this pre-recording works smoothly. I am a life science consultant with Emerson. I have been for about a year. Prior to joining, I spent 17 years working for clinical and commercial stage cell and gene therapy sponsors, both throughout Europe and North America. My background is in IT, though I have experience across many both business functions. Okay, so my job today is to introduce our actors and personas. And to do so, we're going to use a diagram which we created. To start off with, here on slide 13, you can see we have our actors, which are the bluey green boxes, and an actor is essentially an organizational unit. And we have our personas, these gray boxes. A persona is a type of role, or think about it as a job that somebody might do. Okay, so let's take a look at the diagram. Quite simple. We're going to build it up as we go over the next 5 or so slides. So we'll start to add a little more detail. So you can see on the left-hand side here, we have 3 layers. We have customer, we have supply chain execution, we have manufacturing. In general, we see the flow of time move from left to right, and really from the top left-hand corner down to the bottom center, and then back up to the top right again. And these black arrows indicate the flow of physical material. So oftentimes that will be patient material, but not always. Let's add our first 2 actors. So we have public and we have treatment center. And within those actors, we have some personas. And so the goal here, for us is to identify personas where the role may be either new or could be different from what you would expect in a traditional life science or pharmaceutical or even biotech company. All right, specific to cell and gene therapy in some way or other. So, for example, we have our treatment center coordinator. That's a role that may not typically exist, or at least not one that we would generally interact with. However, when you have a more complicated product, especially if you are also taking material from the patient up front, then you're likely going to need a coordinator to manage all of the scheduling. So add in our next one, which is our our shipping partner. And you'll note our shipping partner goes all the way from left to right because we may be taking material up front. We may be sending back and forth between our manufacturing sites, and then we'll be sending out the drug products back to our patient on the top right-hand corner. We've added now our supply planning actor and our supply chain planner. This is a role that probably does exist in a lot of other organizations outside of cell and gene therapy. However, the role can become significantly more complex. If you think about each patient being a single batch and oftentimes needing to schedule around future treatments when even sometimes manufacturing time is variable, this can become quite a complicated process. We've also added our orchestration area here on the right, and we're going to add 3 actors to this orchestration. I've noticed that in conversations around cell and gene therapy, and especially around the complexities in cell and gene therapy, this orchestration area is where a lot of people spend their time. I've also heard it called a hub. Well, actually, quite a few different things. A lot of companies will have their own trademark for it. And let's take a look and see what's inside. So we have patient operations, we have accounting, and we have our control tower. Now, think of patient operations as outward facing. Whether this sits inside of our organization or outside, regardless, is looking out towards our treatment center and our patients, to work on essentially working with our treatment center coordinator, potentially following up on patient outcomes, and dealing with any account reps that are needed. The accounting could obviously is a role that you would see in other organizations as well, but can be more complicated if we're dealing with personalized medicine. Oftentimes, we also see different reimbursement methods, especially when some of these products can be extremely expensive. And then our control tower is generally inward facing, right? So, this will be dealing with the scheduling and outcomes from our manufacturing facility and working with our patient operations and potentially accounting as well to ensure that everything is aligned and scheduled correctly. So next up, we've added our items down the bottom here in manufacturing. So you'll notice we have a sequencing lab, cell pre-processing sites, plasma manufacturing, genetic vector manufacturing, and cell manufacturing. And for each of those, we have 2 or 3 personas: production coordinator, production planner, and quality responsible roles. So, depending on the type of product that you have, you may need all of these. You may need 1 or 2 of these. So, for example, if if your product requires that you do DNA sequencing for a potential patient to identify whether the product is viable or whether you need a certain variety of the product, you may need a sequencing lab. And that lab may be internal or external. And really for any of these roles that we're going through, these could be internal or external roles. We then have our cell pre-processing sites. We'll have plasmid manufacturing if potentially the product is plasmid, or if it's not and you are doing vector manufacturing, then you'll likely need those plasmids for your vector. Your product, if you are transfecting in vivo, then genetic vector manufacturing may be your final stage before DP. Alternatively, if you're doing ex vivo transfection, then you're going to need your vector as well as your cell manufacturing. Okay, so again, the black arrows are there to suggest potential parts of physical material, oftentimes patient material, but as you can see here, that might be plasmid, it might be vector, so it's not always that patient material. So let's take a look at the last one here. So we've added, on the right-hand side, we've added our payers, so we've added our regulatory agencies. You'll notice we also have a lot release director on the right-hand side. Now, not every organization in biotech is going to be familiar with a lot release director. Oftentimes, especially for some of these more complicated and maybe less mature products, that there's going to be additional requirement around releasing a lot prior to shipment to a patient, and the regulatory agency is going to be involved in that. Okay. You'll notice we've also added some additional dotted lines here that are created to demonstrate potential flow of information. You can see there's some information flow between the patient and the treatment center, and then between the treatment center and our orchestration layer. Okay, and so for my final slide here, this toolkit that we've created also includes definitions of the responsibilities for each persona. And so you can see here, we have given an example. So for control tower, end-to-end delivery accountable, the responsibility for this persona would be that they need to coordinate all batches that have time criticality, end-to-end vein to vein across all supply partners of shipping. Certainly if, this may be exactly what that persona might do within your organization, or you might need to modify it depending on how your organization is built out. But I think this gives a really good starting point. And so with that, that's the end of my slides. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
And thank you, Sean, for recording that in advance. The next thing that we want to look at with Fred's help is how do those process maps vary by therapy type? So Fred, would you like to put your camera on and go ahead?
Yes, thank you, David. And I will be I'm a bit blind because I cannot see the slides. I mean, there is a big lag on my side, but I'm going to rely on you to move from one side to the other, and I will follow on my offline version of the deck. So, hi everyone. So my name is Fred Dardy. I work for Roche in Switzerland, and I'm the lead IT architect on the Roche cell and gene therapy industrialization program. And today I would like to start with an analogy. The analogy is coordinating supply chain execution is like conducting an orchestra. Baroque music is different to modern music. An orchestra is made of different instruments, different tuning, and in order to play well together as one entity, there is a need for a conductor. Because of the specific characteristic of CGT, like fast clock speed, extreme care on patient safety, fast reaction on exception, the existence of different configuration, there is a need for an end-to-end coordination function. The same way an orchestra is composed of instruments playing different parts, so needing to be coordinated. All the actors of CGT solution, like treatment centers, shipping partners, manufacturing facilities, they all play different roles, but complementary roles, and also need to be coordinated. So what are the parts of the CGT orchestra that needs coordinated? And go to the next slide, please, David. We started with the same actor diagram that Sean just explained, and this time, instead of identifying personas, we wanted to know the high-level process. So we ask ourselves what is the main thing that each actor does, and we try to express it using a set of verbs. For example, at the very high level, a manufacturer here at the bottom of the screen will make and test. And at the top, we ask ourselves, how does this vary from one therapy to another? So if you can go to the next slide, David. You can see here that we developed a description for all the process blocks that you can use and adapt to your specific case. And go to the next slide. Let's explore now the different therapies and how they can be represented using this approach. The first one is the made-to-stock genetic vector. For example, mRNA mechanism for delivering a new genetic sequence to the cells of a patient. It's the same for each patient. So multiple doses can be produced at once. They can be stored for a period of time in stock. In a time sequence, here are the process blocks. I mean, starting with the supply planning, that makes the plan. Then plasmid manufacturing makes and tests the plasmid. Genetic vector manufacturing uses the plasmid to make and test the genetic vector. For some therapies, the health authorities are involved here on the right to authorize batches, and they always monitor for compliance. And then the shipping partners delivers the product to the treatment center that infuses it in the patient that receives it. That's the full chain. For make to stock, there is no need for a complex coordination because it's closer to the classic biologics, but with some additional complexity. Some of the actors, the ones that are in those white spaces appearing on this diagram, are not appearing because we don't need them in this specific case. Can move to the next slide, David. Let's have a look now at the made to stock assembled to order genetic vector. It is very similar. The product is the same for each patient, so quantity can be produced at once, but the finished product has a short shelf life. So it has to be ordered for each specific patient. Sometimes the product has to be delivered within the validity period of an antibody test, for example. Sometimes it's the quantity of the product that needs to be adjusted based on the weight of the patient. Therefore, it's one order per patient. So we need an additional patient operation function, in this case, to liaise with the treatment centers. As it needs to be delivered to a tight schedule, there is a need for a control tower actor to coordinate the delivery. You can also see on this diagram the critical path that is shown in red by the red lines on the diagram. Can move to the next slide. Let's now look at the personalized cancer vaccines and gene therapies that are manufactured specifically for each patient. A personalized cancer vaccine contains genetic sequences made specifically for a particular patient's tumor. Therefore, the patient provides a specimen, the treatment center collects the specimen, the sequencing lab analyzes the specimen and sends the data to the plasmid manufacturer. And here the customer critical path is shown in red as well, but is longer in this particular case. If you go to the next slide, here, what about cell therapies now, and in particular the allogenic cell therapies in this specific case? Here, the donor provides stem cells, for example. They are collected at the donor center, shipped to manufacturing for make and test. They are then kept in stock for patients. Here, there is no red line, no control tower, no patient operation function that are needed. If you go to the next slide. For some allogenic cell therapies, like finished to order, the product is manufactured to a point where it can be frozen. But after this finishing step, the product has a short life, shelf life, to a maximum of 72 hours. Then the finishing is done for specific customer order, and there is a customer critical path appearing in this case. Here again, it is represented by those red lines, as it needs coordination. Additional functions are also needed. Go to the next slide, please. Finally, let's have a look at the CAR-T therapies. Here, the patient specimen is collected. It might be pre-processed locally to prepare it for a longer journey. And then in cell manufacturing, the genetic vector is used to modify the patient cells. And then they are shipped to the treatment center for infusion. Here again, we have a customer critical path shown in red. So overall, as you can see, we use the same blocks to represent each type of therapies. And go to the last slide, David, please. So imagine now that you're asked to design the IT landscape to support the new therapy, or in my case, several new therapies. So what are the key questions to ask about the therapy? First, which actors will be involved in the supply of this therapy? And in a couple of verbs, what do they do? Then, is the dose or the substance personalized to the patient or made to order? You can see here that we have 5 questions to help here, as it is not simply, is it autologous or allogenic? Next question will be about time criticality. Here also, there is a set of questions to help, drawing the red line on the process diagram. And then there is what are the long-term responsibilities. We use this approach combined with a service-based architecture to allow a very modular approach and cope with the therapy diversity and overall changes. I hope that that way of representing things can help you too. Thank you.
Fantastic. And hot news is that just today on that resources page that Nettie has put into the chat is in fact a case study of that architecture that Fred was just mentioning at the end there. So that's something you can watch at your leisure. But the next question we want to ask Christian this time is, what do all these people need the systems to do? So over to you, Christian.
Thank you, David. So I'm Christian Hoferer. I'm also with Roche, and in the Tech Ops IT, I'm leading a Center of Excellence for Business Analysis and User Experience. And yeah, actually several people of my organization are working on CGT initiatives. Now getting to first, what is a user story? So how does it look like in detail? The first thing to mention, the format on the left, you see there is SA, I want, so that. So it's providing a role, which is the perspective of the user story, then a goal that this role wants to achieve, and then a benefit that the role expects to get out of this. Yeah, let's look at the story for this end-to-end delivery accountable. As a end-to-end delivery accountable, I want near real-time visibility of detailed status and progress of each treatment or batch by each partner in the delivery chain, so that I can track progress and exceptions to the progress of the treatment through the supply and respond to problems and resolve them fast within the short shelf life of the product. That's basically the user story. Now, how is this helping compared to maybe traditional requirements? It helps the user and also the receiver of the requirement with the additional context and with the additional information on what is to be achieved. So the benefit helps to add the context and also the role itself to give a certain view. To come to the acceptance criteria, that's something we attached. That's not part of the user story, so we added that. We are into an IT field, let's say, with the stream, and this helped us to handle technical requirements, system and non-functional requirements, or simply things where we already, from an IT perspective, have an idea how a system should behave, but it definitely does not fit into a user story. So we put that into the acceptance criteria. And looking at this one, the acceptance criteria is that the control tower needs to have updated status change within 15 minutes if anything near real time happens. And maybe also quickly to a note on the 15 minutes, we had previously phrased that with real time, but realized that real time, depending on who you talk to, can mean very different things. Some people think about milliseconds, others think about hours and days. So we thought we put in a ballpark time, and this of course can be challenged and updated, but we think right now it's a good dimension there. And before we move on, maybe one last word on the user story granularity. So you can have user stories as detailed as you want. What we tried to keep a balance between high level and detail, simply for usability reasons. And with that, we can go to the good old diagram. So you've already been quite introduced to that one. Now, maybe I'd like to point you to the yellow dots. What do the yellow dots mean? Each dot means or represents a user story for that persona. So we have, of course, some with a lot of user stories, some with not a lot. And if you look at this, please also consider that our user stories are only CGT specific. So we don't look at traditional biomanufacturing or supply chain user stories. We really try to focus on, is there actually something new with CGT for this persona and then for this user requirement or for these user stories? And then that's when we edit it. Looking at it overall, it gives kind of even a little heat map to say, okay, where's happening most of the CGT specific stuff, in which actor for which of the persona. And it helped us in the past also to have a health check on, did we forget any user stories for certain actors on personas? So we really could look at this and say, yeah, let's have a brainstorm. Do we need more there? And so far, this is what we came out with. And of course, we're happy if we forgot something and if people can help us to add or fill gaps. Now, with that, let's look at two concrete stories. For first, the treatment center coordinator. So, one sec. Looking at the table in the back, that's pretty much, those are all user stories for that persona. So we have in total 9 user stories for the treatment center coordinator listed here. And it's a filter view directly from the spreadsheet tool. On the front table, we have a specific story, which is the CGT08. And one particularity about this, it is actually applicable to 2 different personas. So when we found that the same user story could also be interesting for another persona, we just added that, and of course try to also simplify it with aligning it between the 2. Good. Then let's read through the story. As a treatment center coordinator, I want to have a single portal to manage all the advanced therapies for all my patients. With the benefit, I can simplify my standard operating procedures, streamline training, work efficiently, and reduce errors, see options or slots from different providers in one place. The acceptance criteria talks mainly about details around data, the processes, and also data protection, which are then a baseline or a prerequisite for or to enable such a single portal. Now, content-wise, I wanted to add that at Roche, we are convinced that such a standardization around the portal of the treatment center is key. It is key to healthcare providers to sustainably manage different therapies from different providers, but it's also key to the industry to reduce complexity, and even more if you think that in excuse me, that in the next years we expect much more cell and gene therapies to go market. And yeah, as we think this is key, we put actually substantial effort in in aligning requirements and also in the co-creation and design of such a treatment center platform. With that, I'd like to go to the second example. That's the end-to-end delivery accountable. So same thing. In the back, we have all the stories. Here we have identified 11. And the CGT 35 is one example we picked. Here we have only one persona. So the end-to-end delivery accountable. I want to, let's say it's about respond to events in terms of exception management, countermeasures, or special attention for specific batch, or to coordinate partners quickly. And I also want to track and address management responses to these actions. So that the benefit talks about partners take action, problems are resolved, and delivery of the batch is once again on a common plan. And then let's have a look at the overall sheet at the, So we went from, let's say, high level to more detail. And this is really the raw data, the raw user story spreadsheet. And it's a total of 65 user stories, which we have identified so far. And let's say we haven't come up recently with a new one. So we think it's already relatively complete. And there are several, if you look at the rows and at the selection criteria, there are several ways to have an entry or a perspective on those user stories with classification, filtering, and so on. And you can also adapt, as it's a spreadsheet, this to your need. And that's something which Kim now will talk about and walk us through. Over to Kim.
Go ahead, Kim. Hello, Kim.
Hi. I was just trying to find the mute button. Thank you, Christian. So I'm Kim Wilson. I'm a life science industry business consultant with Dassault Systems. And we work with our clients on creating digital end-to-end thread from discovery into clinical trials into manufacturing. So we can go to the next slide. Today, we're going to talk about, at least in this section, the fact that normally at a webinar, everybody wants the slide deck. Well, today you're actually going to get a toolkit, so we're happy to do that. And we're going to go through right now everything that everyone spoke about, but we're going to show you how to access that. So this is what the toolkit contains. There are a couple of PDFs, and there are going to be some sections where you can click and you'll be able to go to the diagrams that you need to and get to the relevant parts that you're interested in. There are also the process maps, and those are on PowerPoint. And as everybody has stated, you are going to be able to modify those for your particular situation. In addition, we have the spreadsheets, and you can filter and update those user stories and descriptions to meet your specific situation. And over time, if you continue to develop additional capabilities, then you can come in and make necessary changes there as well. And then finally, there's going to be this recording and other collateral that's available using that link down below that I think you'll also find in the chat. Okay, next. So who should be using the toolkit and why? Biomanufacturers and CDMOs, if you're bringing your first CGT to market, or if you're scaling several different therapies, this would be useful for you in your conversations. Treatment centers and shipping partners. Software vendors, of course, because they're trying to develop technologies to support the supply of cell and gene therapies. And IT teams, the architects, the business analysts, and the solution designers. And why? Because you're going to increase your understanding about cell and gene therapy. One of the things that we were thinking about is that often people like to, focus on their own area of responsibility. and not really care necessarily about what's going on around them. And this particular toolkit allows you to expand not only their awareness, but show the interdependencies and how it really matters as you're developing your IT systems. It's easy to visualize the process this way. And if you have anybody that's new to the organization, it's a great way to onboard them. Additionally, you can use these tools to explain to management, you know, the vision that you have, the complications that exist in doing this. And if you need new funding, this would help support the rationale for that. You can establish roles, responsibilities, and accountabilities for supply, and therefore all the related IT responsibilities with that. And you can specify design, code, and test for the solutions and the integration points between the various companies. Next slide. Okay. So this is the actor and persona diagram that we saw at the beginning, and it's in PowerPoint, so you're going to be able to edit it. But first, we might want to ask, which company is providing each of the actor organizations? And do you even need them all? So this is where you would start to do your editing. So everything's color-coded, and you can change them if you want to. In this example, the treatment centers are green, the sponsor is cyan, the CDMO is pink, and the shipping partner is gray. So change the colors if you want to. You can immediately see, though, from a visual perspective, who needs to be talking to who. And obviously the IT departments need to be talking to one another. In this example, we deleted the diagnostics partner to show you that you can do that, and we eliminated the regulator since they wouldn't be doing lot by lot approvals for this particular product. Okay, and in this case, if you want to clean it up a little bit more, you might rename or combine some titles. So in this case, maybe instead of patient operations, you want to do customer relationship manager or management. You might want to combine the patient outcomes and account rep names. It's really up to you what you want to do. So essentially, this now expresses who's involved in all of the CGT operations. This second set of diagrams that Fred showed us, the process blocks, what these actors actually do within the process blocks. So you can follow the same idea for editing. So again, color, renaming, deleting. And then there was that specific point that he was talking about on the time criticality analysis. You might need to add new blocks. Like in this case, you added pretest and you added prepare the patient. And then notice there's some additional red lines. Like maybe there's a shelf life issue that you want to highlight. And so you do that with the red lines. The key is you need to make these diagrams fit your situation. Next. Okay, and then Christian just showed us the 65 user stories, which took a lot of time to develop, and we're very proud of these. And you can filter by using the drop-down menu and the search boxes to help you figure out specifically what you want to go after. And in this case, we're looking at end-to-end delivery. You've already seen that we created a display page. We've done it by persona. In this case, it's the end-to-end delivery accountable. You just need to pick what you want from that drop-down menu. And that makes it easy to review with the people that have that particular role, or if you're trying to align other folks to what a specific person is responsible for. Okay. I just had something pop up on my screen so I couldn't see. And now we're looking at actors, which is a group of personas. For example, if you're building a treatment center, what platform do you need to have, and what are all the specifics that you need that surround the treatment center? And next, we'll do it by type. This shows a set of stories for a particular theme. And in this case, we're looking at planning and scheduling, which would be useful if you're looking at the issue of slot management, as an example. And finally, you can filter by therapy type. This shows a subset of the user stories for a particular modality. And of course, you can combine several filters on the original user story list that we showed a few slides ago. So how do you use the story analysis, the user stories analysis? You can accelerate your own user stories by saying, I want so that, and it's an editable Excel spreadsheet as we highlighted. You can focus on one actor at a time or one persona at a time using the diagram. Ideally, you're going to do this in a conversation with someone who knows that business area or someone who's new and you're trying to educate them. You're going to use the Excel column filter in the search box because they work extremely well. And then you can add content if you need to. And within each user story, you want to know, does this apply to the persona for your particular therapy? If it doesn't, you can get rid of it. Maybe you want to amend it. And you can add your own insights here as well. What makes sense? What's the language that your organization uses? And we encourage you not to focus on how it's going to be delivered at this stage. Instead, just focus on what. And there's no need to mention everything that IT currently does. This is really just the extra. Use your filters to check for thoroughness and filter by each user story type. And you can filter by Purdue level, and you can add creative insights, as I mentioned before. And you want to discuss this with the solution architects and vendors. Specifically, the so that and the reasons why are very important to encourage that dialogue back and forth. So we think it's a useful tool. It's been a pleasure to work with everybody on the team. The benefits are, of course, this covers the end-to-end process. It contextualizes the detail in a simple, high-level view. It helps clarify the roles for all of the organizations involved and the perspective of each type of user, and explains why. And we call that so that. It distills the key questions that an IT person needs to ask. It supports a thorough analysis, and there have been so many different folks involved in this that have different experiences that we've been able to add that all together to provide what we think is a very thorough document. And it supports commonality across multiple different therapy types. And of course, this we anticipate this is going to grow over time. So if you have any comments, we'd like to hear them. We'd like to modify if we need to. But the point is that this is your tool that we've provided for you. So please adapt it to make it functional for your organization. And I'll send it back to David.